Hello, this is Dr. Badijo, and I'm going to show you how to work with hillshades in ArcGIS Pro. We're going to need to obviously have the software, ArcGIS Pro, and we're going to need a data set that we can work with in here, a raster data set of some sort, like a digital surface model or a digital elevation model. So first of all, let's open up our program, ArcGIS Pro, and wait for it to load up here. And here we can either start with a blank template, or if you'd like to use just another project that you have already working on, that's fine too, so you don't have to make a new project. But you could just make a new project by opening up a blank template, or I'm just going to select this default project that I have always kind of saved somewhere so that I can just work with things and play around. So once we have our map open, you can see the United States map right in front of us. We are going to make our catalog pane come up. It'll be over here on the right hand side, and if it's not showing right away, you may have to hit catalog down here with these tabs, or you may have to go to view and actually make that pane come up. But mine's already here, and I'm going to look at folders. I'm going to open it up and see what's in there. It looks like we need to connect the folder to find the raster data set that I have saved somewhere else. So I'm going to go ahead and right click here and hit add folder connection, and it brings up my dialog. So I can go ahead and search for the folder which has my raster data set, which I have under storage D, and Google Drive, GVal surface test, and it should be Deming Park, Deming, and export. So I know my raster data set, my digital surface model is actually in this export folder. So I'm going to just go ahead and click that once, have it come up here where it says name, and then hit OK. And what you'll see is that it pops up here under the folders heading, and you can open it up just by hitting this little triangle next to it, and it'll drop down with all the stuff inside of that folder. And the one I'm looking for is dsmdeming.tiff. So it's a TIFF file, which is my raster data set. So I'm going to grab it and drag it into the map pane, and there it is. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit to give you a little context. Here's Deming Park, and over here on this side of the loop is where we did a little bit of mapping using some structure from motion photogrammetry, using 2D photos to create a 3D surface. And essentially what we're testing to see if we can actually see a divot that's in the ground somewhere along the surface, as well as any other microtopography that we could catch with this method. So with hillshade modeling, with actually creating a hillshade, we can visualize the data and even exaggerate the elevation changes in the data so that we can make that feature pop. And we can see it visually here in ArcGIS Pro. So we have it already here on our map. We're going to go ahead and look for what is called the raster functions button, which if you go over here to the ribbon, you go to imagery, and looking around here in the imagery, you'll see that one of these is called raster functions. So you go click that, and it'll make this pop up over here on the right hand side where the catalog pane typically is. It'll just kind of replace it, and you can see that down here it has a new tab called raster functions. So here, go ahead and you can explore this all you want and open up these different headings: analysis, appearance, um, classification, conversion, correction, all kinds of things, all the way down to surface. And here under surface is where we're actually going to find the tool to work with to create a hillshade model. So here we're going to actually click on hillshade, and it'll basically come up with a form which we have to fill out with the appropriate data and parameters that we need to use in order to create this new layer. So first of all, which raster data set are we using? We're going to go here into the drop menu, and it'll only have the one that's available, which is DSM Deming. We'll click that, and you'll notice that it matches the name over here in the table of contents or the contents pane. So it's basically sourcing this data set in order to create our hillshade model. And at this point, we actually have to choose a hillshade type. There's two in here. We have the traditional method, which chooses a point up in the sky where there would be a hypothetical sun casting its light across the surface and creating shading across this entire digital model. You can see you can control for the azimuth, the direction, orientation of where that sun is coming from, and also the altitude of the light source itself. We're actually going to choose a different method, which is using multi-directional lighting, multiple light sources, which actually may help us out a little bit in terms of detecting that little divot. So we're going to let the next one just kind of stay the same, just leave it as none for scaling. And then we're going to let our z-factor stay as 1. So just whatever its true elevation value at each point is just going to stay as is instead of exaggerating it. And we're going to do this for the first round, and then we're actually going to go in and exaggerate this number a little bit to see kind of what that difference is. And this last one here, you don't want to check that off if you wanted to go ahead and do an edge pixel interpolation. That's the default. I would just go ahead and just leave it as it is, and then hit down here at the bottom, create new layer. Very quickly you see that it creates a hillshade model, and it looks very different than what you had below on the table of contents, the DSM. Let's go ahead and check it off, check it back on. That way you can do a little bit of a comparison. But you can see here, you can see all these subtle undulations in the surface itself. So it kind of helps out to do this kind of method. Let's go ahead and do hillshade model. Same exact thing, except instead of multi-directional, we'll just do traditional, and we'll leave it at the default azimuth and altitude just to see kind of what we get. Hit create. See how things kind of change? You can play around with this and see what exactly you want, if you want that single light source, or if you want that kind of multi-directional light source to really make some of those things pop. But you can also change the light source if you do the traditional method as well. And in here, we can see also still some of these subtle undulations on the ground. The divot I was talking about, I don't know if we can see it on this, but I know I did see it in the other surface that we were working with. I'm going to go ahead and click that off and look at this one here. Yes, there it is. You see this divot right there? We were unsure if that would actually pop out in the digital surface model when we were doing the mapping. So if I zoom out, you can still see it from this elevation. Keep your eye right there, and I'm going to go ahead and put the traditional method on, and you can see it as well, but it seems to kind of pop a little bit more when you use that multi-directional method. So keep that in mind. I'm going to go ahead and check this off, and we'll leave the multi-directional method on, and I'm going to go to Hillshade again, and this time we're going to exaggerate our Hillshade model, or our digital surface model for the Hillshade. I'm going to do multi-directional though, because I actually like that one better to kind of make this feature pop out. And then we'll exaggerate to, no, let's go 3 and hit OK. Very quickly, you can tell there was a difference there between those two. Something I'm going to do for you here is show you how to visualize 2 different layers a little easier. If you go to Appearance, you can go right here into the Effects pane, hit Swipe, and your cursor turns into this little triangle with a direction telling you where to swipe after you click on the screen. So I'm going to swipe from right to left. I click, and I'm going to pull that back so you can see the difference between those 2 hillshade models when I exaggerate by 3 times. So you can really see now some of those features when you exaggerate the model. So another thing that you can do here, let's go ahead and use the one that we exaggerated by 3, and we'll check everything else off. We're going to leave the DSM on, and I'm going to actually move it above the hillshade model. So now the hillshade model is covering the digital surface model is covering the hillshade model, and we're going to play around with some of the way that this is represented here in the map pane. So you already have appearance clicked off on the ribbon, and you'll see one that's transparency, which is this little slider right in here. Let's move this up to 45 transparency, maybe even just 40. And then let's recolorize here the raster data set. We're going to click here on the color scheme, And we'll drop this little box down here. We can choose from all these different colors. I tend to like using this one. And I can visually see much easier where the high elevations are in the red and the lower elevations are in the green. So, and you can even still wipe this, back and forth if you want to, the DSM off of the Hillshade model. But I don't know, it just kind of gives you a very quick reference to what is a high value, what is a low value, and the direction of that slope just by looking at it. With the Hillshade model underneath it, you can get an idea for the morphology of the topographic surfaces. So, and I would invite you to go ahead back to the raster functions tab over in the raster function, or over here on the right-hand side, and play around with some of these things. Play around with aspect and contour, the shaded relief, view shed, and kind of see what these tools do for you. And you can see very quickly that it'll just prompt you with a form, just like with the Hillshade model, that you just kind of have to fill out and put those parameters in, and you can create a new layer based on what that is for. So thank you for watching.